flags in the air. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Breaking Balls channel. This is Bob here, and as the month of May is ramping up, we've got cars on track at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Of course, the main story for this month here in North America is Kyle Larson attempting to be only the 5th driver in history to run the double, the Memorial Day double, the Indy 500, and then the Coke 600 all in the same day, 1,100 miles of North American crown jewel racing. We've got a lot to cover, the history of the double, as well as who has actually run it in those 4 drivers. But first, if you're new here, like, subscribe. We cover motorsports and NASCAR here on a weekly basis here, so follow along for all the great content and the month of May as it progresses. As Kyle Larson prepares to be the 5th driver to complete the double duty of the Indianapolis 500 and the Coke 600, how did you get to this history point? Well, in 1961, both races were finally scheduled for Memorial Day weekend, but the Indianapolis 500 was run on Memorial Day on Monday, so there was plenty of time for the drivers to get over there. Cale Yarborough was the first one to run in both races in 1967. Unfortunately, he did not finish in either race. Donnie Allison in 1970 was the first driver to have big success when he won the Coke 600 and finished 4th place at Indianapolis. In 1974, the races were switched to the same time, and from 1992, both races continued to run at the same time, so it was impossible for any driver to complete the double. Then, everything changed in 1992, when NASCAR installed lights at Charlotte Motor Speedway. That one hot summer night changed it all, and in 1994, it was finally possible for our first driver to run the double on Memorial Day Sunday. And of course, it would come from one of America's most famous racing families, which is only fitting. John Andretti announced in 1994 he'd switch from IndyCar to NASCAR full-time, and with that he was going to attempt to qualify for both the Indianapolis 500 and the Coke 600, which he successfully did. After running 10th place at Indianapolis and finishing the race, he had a tedious schedule, which included a helicopter to the airport in Indianapolis, a flight to Charlotte, another helicopter ride to Charlotte Motor Speedway, where he still was late to the driver's meeting and was forced to start at the rear, making his day just a little bit more difficult. He ended up having engine issues on lap 220 and did not finish the race, so was unsuccessful in completing the 1,100 miles, but was the pioneer for the original double duty. Although Andretti failed to finish the NASCAR portion of the double in 1994, it showed that logistically, the Memorial Day double was possible to pull off. And in 1997, another open-wheel talent brought his talents to NASCAR full-time, Robby Gordon. That's right, that Robby Gordon. One of the most polarizing and controversial figures in North American motorsports. After 4 full years at IndyCar, where he certainly got a reputation, Gordon moved to NASCAR full-time in 1997 with Sabco Motorsports, and with a very highly funded and publicized push, was going to run the Indy Coke 600 double in 1997. But unfortunately, rain canceled the portion of the Indy 500, so he was forced to go to Charlotte and come back later for the Indy 500. And as you can see from the clips, it did not go well for Gordon as he DNF'd in both races in the Indy 500 and Coke 600 in 97. Came back for more in 2000. Robby goes for the double again. And wouldn't you know it, rain catches him out again at Indianapolis. The 500 was delayed for 3 hours in 2000, but Robby stays once more, ends up running and finishing 6th place, then goes to Charlotte mid-race and has to take over for backup P.J. Jones, who was in the car to start for him. Gordon did make it to the track after a slight rain delay helped him catch up and get into the car for Jones, but in true Gordon fashion, he had a 5-lap pit penalty for disobeying instructions amid finishing 11 laps down in 35th. So he was 11 laps shy of the 1100. But don't worry, 3rd time's the charm. In 2002, he's doing his first real double. No rain in the forecast, and he finally gets through and gets 8th place at the Indy 500 in 2002, and then goes to Charlotte and has some handling issues, cramps up, but fights through it and finishes 1 lap short of the 1,100 miles. Robby Gordon in 2002 was 1 lap short and ran a 10:99 on Memorial Day weekend. Unfortunately, that's as close as Gordon would get He would run the double consecutive years again in 2003 and 2004, but Mother Nature just wasn't on his side. In 2003, Robby qualified on the Indy front row, but did have a DNF due to engine failure, and then gets to Charlotte and runs 414 miles, just 2/3 of the race in, and rain calls the race short. And then in 2004, rain at the Indianapolis 500 makes him leave, and then runs 20th 3 laps down at the Coke 600. So for Robby Gordon, 5-time double duty attempts is a record. Unfortunately, 4 times Mother Nature has foiled him. Of course, this wouldn't be a Memorial Day double video without the most iconic one of all, and that's Tony Stewart. In 1999, when the Indiana native moved to NASCAR full-time, it was on everyone's mind, and of course, he delivered his rookie year. A 9th-place finish just a few laps off at the Indy 500, and a 4th-place finish at Charlotte, closing for the win late. The young rookie set up a lot of expectations for his second attempt in 2001, with Chip Ganassi and Joe Gibbs racing, and boy, did he deliver. In a highly competitive Ganassi car, with Target financially sponsoring him, Stewart went out and performed better than almost any NASCAR driver has in the modern era, leading 13 laps and finishing 6th place on the lead lap at the Indianapolis 500. The stage was set. For Stewart, 500 miles down, 600 more to go in Charlotte. And with his recent NASCAR stardom blossoming, he found the media covering his Charlotte journey in droves. Once Stewart got to the track late, of course, and missing the driver's meeting, he had to start in the rear of the field and spun out on lap 2, but in true smoke fashion, he battled his way all 600 miles and finished 3rd place. More importantly, especially for Robby Gordon's sake, was on the lead lap. Tony Stewart finished his 1,100-mile journey and is still to this day the only driver to complete the 1,100 miles of racing in the same day. 2001 would be Stewart's second and final time running the double. He did have a moment in 2004, very weird, where he showed up on bump day unannounced, ready to go in a Foyt car, and his sponsors just never gave him the green light. Very strange. Look it up. I don't have the energy, but it should be another video at some point. Our 4th and final driver to run the Memorial Day double comes after an 8-year gap from 2005 to 2012, where IndyCar actually moved the Indy 500 back a little bit. Logistically, it was just not feasible for any driver. In comes NASCAR's Kurt Busch, who in 2013 tested with Andretti Autosport at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and would later sign on in 2014 to run the double for Andretti and his team in NASCAR, Stewart-Haas. Busch would successfully qualify to be the 4th man to run the double in modern history. Unfortunately for Busch, he had a crash in practice the week after qualifying leading up to the race, and he had to use a backup car. He ended up finishing 6th at the Indianapolis 500 in 2014, and then bolted over to Charlotte, where he ran top 15 most of the day after starting in the back, after, you guessed it, missing the driver's meeting. Busch would go on to finish 40th, though, after suffering engine failure. As of now, Kurt Busch's 2014 double was the last time a driver has attempted to do the 1,100 miles on Memorial Day. But in 2024, Kyle Larson looks to aim to be the 5th driver to make the Memorial Day Double Duty Club. Larson will run with mclaren in the 2024 108th running of the Indianapolis 500, and then go on to Charlotte in the Coke 600. Larson plans on doing this for the 2024 and 2025 season. So there you have it. Now you and I, yes you, are both a little bit more well-versed in the Memorial Day double. 1,100 miles down, or 1099 if you're Robby Gordon, but let us know in the comments below. Does Kyle Larson actually have a competitive shot at the Indy 500 these next 2 years? It's going to be very interesting to see. Like I said, Breaking Balls will be here all year long for all your motorsports content. So if you like what you saw today, like and subscribe. We'll be here for more content. Follow along.